Hi, this is Alexa.
Hi, Miss Jennifer.
And welcome back to another episode of Checked Out, our podcast that we do whenever we are able to get a chance to do it.
Oh my goodness. Unfortunately, it's been a while since we have had a chance, but...
The important thing is we're here now.
Yes,
We've been doing some reading.
We have read.
And we're ready to talk about it.
We've read a few books. We've been escaped from our desk.
Yes.
To read a little, so yes. So I'm going to let you start about what you read.
All right, so I'm going to start with what I am actually currently reading. Yep. I am in the middle of this book that I have been very excited for.
Oh, yes, I remember. Didn't you talk about the first book? Right?
I did. So I'm currently holding a copy of The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik. This is my own personal copy because I loved the first book in this series so much. I pre-ordered this one, which is very rare that I actually do that. The first book in the series is called A Deadly Education. This book is called The Last Graduate. As I said, it is lesson 2 of the Scholomance, is what it says on the cover. So the Scholomance, it's basically dark Hogwarts.
I remember discussion with the other book.
Yes. So this series is basically a very adult Harry Potter. So it follows Elle, who is a witch at this school called the Scholomance. She is extremely predisposed to dark magic. So she is very determinedly trying to not be a dark wizard.
I gotcha.
Which is very hard in the Scholomance because you're constantly being attacked by monsters that want to eat you because baby wizards are delicious to monsters.
Oh.
In the Scholomance, she has befriended Orion Lake, who is basically our Harry Potter facsimile. He is a very weird boy from New York who loves killing monsters. It's literally all he lives for is to just protect other wizards from monsters. And it's one of my favorite running jokes in the series is Elle and her friends will just be having conversations and then suddenly Orion flings himself through the door and attacks a monster that was about to sneak up on them. He's just constantly popping up out of corners and saving everyone from monsters. So the first book was their penultimate year in the Scholomance, and this year is their graduation year. So they're getting ready to graduate from the Scholomance. And when you graduate from the Scholomance, basically the school is on a big year and it rotates down every year.
Oh.
It's out in the middle of space. It's in a liminal space, basically. And whenever it rotates down your final year, you're on the ground floor and then you have to escape through the graduation hall, which is where all of the monsters have been gathering all year long. You have to fight your way out of the school.
Oh my goodness.
It's very exciting.
That's a crazy premise for us. That's cool.
It is. It's very, very good. It's pretty violent, as one would guess. The premise is monsters eating baby wizards.
These are monsters, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. But it's very fun. It's a very fun read. It's a very quick read. Naomi Novik wrote one of my all-time favorite books called Uprooted. She's extremely good at world building. It's so much fun to read.
That sounds great.
I keep trying to sell it to my husband. He's not buying it, though. He's just I don't want to read about children getting eaten by monsters. It's I guess that's fair, but it is really fun.
You're oh, come on.
Yeah, you don't know all of them, personally.
Yeah, you don't actually know them. They're just, There's Star Trek characters with that, what is it, the blue
The red shirts.
The red shirts.
Yeah, they're all red shirts, exactly.
So I have 2 books I'm reading. One of which is Teaching Artfully by Megan Parker. This is a nonfiction book about actually teaching art to kids. And it's written in a graphic novel style, which I thought was really fun because, of course, we love our graphic novels.
We do.
And so it's really fun. It's very introspective. It's about her teaching art, I believe, in some inner city schools and her experiences with the idea of art and what is art. And I like art. I have an art history background. So, of course, when I see something about art, I'm very interested in that. So that's the reason why I'm reading that. And it's good. It's very good. So
I love that idea of a graphic novel that is also a memoir, but it's about somebody who is an artist.
Yes.
I that's very meta. I feel like it must be very beautiful.
That's true because she's teaching art. She's doing the art.
Yeah.
She's very it's about her life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I see that now. The other book I'm reading right now is by Helene Thurston. It's a series. The first book was called An Elderly Lady Up to No Good. And then her new book is called An Elderly Lady Must Not Be Crossed. And the main character is a very, very crotchety old lady who is just a murderous kind of not a nice person, but it's just because she's an old lady is sort of people dismiss her. But she's not to be crossed, like it says in the title. Highly, highly recommend. It's short. Each story, it's like
they're very small
little books, and each like a vignette of the story as it takes you through is not very long. It's sort of a fun read. We actually were going to do this book in my mystery book club when I had my club.
It will come back. It will return.
I hope it does. But we were going to use it, but then April and I, partner in crime with that, we both read it and we're like, oh gosh, we need to put this in the book club. But we kind of just generally just mentioned it a couple times in the book club. And next thing I know, everyone came in and said they had read it and it wasn't the book we were supposed to be reading.
Oh.
And they did read the other book.
Oh, okay.
But we ended up discussing the book without it really being the book club book.
Oh, that's so funny.
So it turned out, and everyone...
that worked out great then.
And everyone absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And so, highly, highly recommend. It's just a fun read. So, you get the first book and the second book now. And so, if you haven't read the first one, please do. It's good. So that's where I am on those. Also, I will honorable mention of my books real quickly is called Beatrice Prophecy by Kate Dicamillo.
Oh, she's great.
It's her newest book, and it's a children's book. I picked it up, and I read the first chapter, and I think it's going to be fantastic.
Okay.
And
her writing is just wonderful.
She's such a good writer.
Yeah.
It's about monks.
Oh,
and this young lady, this young girl that they find, and they realize that she has some really big job that she has to do.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say too much because I just started. But if you've read anything by her, I feel like as soon as you see her name, you should just pick it up.
Yes. Just really good writing.
Very good
even
writing.
If it's a juvenile book, if you think that you don't like kids' books.
If you don't,
her stuff is wonderful.
Disregard that it's a kid's book. Just read her stuff for just her storytelling because amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I know I would be remiss if I went a single podcast without mentioning a graphic novel that I have read. So I actually read 3 recently on the same series by Alice Oseman, and it's called Heartstopper.
Oh, I have read that.
There are currently 3 volumes available, and it is actually going to be adapted into a Netflix series as well, I believe. They've got casting for it, but I don't think that it has been filmed and released yet.
Is it adult, teen?
It is YA.
Okay.
Yeah, it's teen. So Heartstopper is about this boy who goes to an all-boys school. And in the last couple of years, he was accidentally outed to his classmates as gay.
Okay.
So he is kind of dealing with the fallout of that. He's got a lot of trauma from that accidental outing. But he's mostly just well-liked at this point. He's just kind of quiet and a weird kid, and everybody likes him just fine. And then he meets this jock boy who plays rugby. It's also set in England.
Okay.
Yes, it's an all-boys school in England. And so he meets this jock boy in this class that they start together. And it's the story of them gradually falling in love. And it's really sweet and charming and just a quiet little lovely series. The artwork is really beautiful. It was a webcomic originally.
Okay.
And it has now been adapted into this physical graphic novel format. It's very sweet.
I have to check that out because we both love our graphic novels.
Yes, it's very, very good. I believe that there's usually a pretty decent wait list for that first volume.
Okay.
Like I said, it is currently being adapted into a Netflix series, so I'm sure that it will only become more in demand as that series progresses and then is eventually aired. That's usually what happens when things get adaptions. But it's really lovely. It's just a quiet little gentle read. There's not too much drama that happens. It's just the story of these 2 boys.
I kind of like graphic novels like that.
Yes.
Well, it's gentle. It's
yes.
Because a lot of times graphic novels could be one way or another. I think it could be bloody and crime driven or
it's very just slice of life. Here are these 2 boys going to their school and they go to friends' birthday parties and they have a class trip to Paris and it's just them just living their lives, and it's very sweet. It's very charming. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, the artwork is really beautiful too. The other 2 books I have are also romances. Big surprise here. My one non-romance was The Last Graduate. It's about children getting eaten. So the other 2 books that I read, the first one I absolutely adored. Did you watch Schitt's Creek?
Yes.
Okay, I think everyone did pretty much, including Tessa Bailey, who is a very well-known romance author. And she loved the character of Alexis on Schitt's Creek so much that she was like, I have to write a romance novel about Alexis. So this romance novel is called It Happened One Summer, and it is about a very rich, spoiled Beverly Hills heiress whose stepfather is a film producer, and she messes up big time at the beginning of the novel. She gets in big trouble with her stepfather, who decides that he is going to send her away to this coastal fishing town in Seattle. Her late father owned a bar there, and he just left it. He passed away in a fishing accident. He was a fisherman. He fished for crabs in this coastal town, and he had this bar. And her stepdad is like, "I'm sending you away to this property that your late father owned, and I want you to prove to me that you can be responsible and fix it up." Guess what? She meets a really sexy crab fisherman while she's there.
Of course.
It's awesome. It's so cute.
I love it.
Super, super charming. It's going to be part of a duo of books, I believe. She has a younger sister who is equally spoiled, but is a little more alternative, really into music and works on films and stuff. And she goes with her to this town to keep her sister company. The second book, I believe, will be about her younger sister.
Oh, this sounds fun.
It's super fun. Really, really cute. I would recommend it for anybody who enjoyed Schitt's Creek and you liked the character of Alexis. Mm-hmm. She's a very charming protagonist. It's a very sweet book. It was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot about crab fishing in it. So there you go.
Hey.
I also learned some stuff. The other romance book that I read and really enjoyed is called The Devil's Own Duke. It is the second book in the Wallflowers versus Rogues series by Lenora Bell. I think I talked about the first one on this podcast at some point. It's called Love is a Rogue.
I do remember that,
and it's about a woman who falls in love with a carpenter. So this book is kind of similar in that it's a woman who is a lady. She's a titled lady, and then the man is not titled. But he's claiming to be the heir to her father's dukedom.
Oh, okay.
And he has a legitimate claim to it. And he's just I'm the long lost duke. I'm your seventh cousin twice removed. So it's not weird. And
so
then
her father, get married.
Yeah. And then her father's great. I wanted to marry my mistress. Anyway, now I don't have to worry about producing an heir. You can get married. Everyone's happy. And her dad is basically just great. Go on. Go get married and make me a grandchild. Have a good time. And then they fall in love, obviously, because it's a historical romance novel. And it's delightful. So much fun.
I love that you love romances.
They're genuinely just really, they're super fun. I know that there's a lot of baggage that a lot of people have of the covers. And it's they're all very cute pastel covers with these ladies in these beautiful gowns and a shirtless dude.
But
they're so much fun. And genuinely, a lot of romance authors right now are writing really cool stuff. And all of the protagonists of this series by Lenora Bell, I really enjoy. They're all women with secrets, and they have this intellectual society. And so the main character in this novel is currently running her father's vineyard for him. And she is creating this hybrid strain of English wine. And she's desperately trying to get her wine business off the ground. It's very interesting. And they do so much research and make sure that their things are grounded in history, which I really appreciate.
That is good. Because, sometimes you read that and you're no.
They do the research. And I think that most of them really try hard to make sure that their things are grounded in reality.
That's good.
Yeah, it's very fun to read.
I love that. So I also read a graphic novel, but mine, of course, has something to do with a mystery because that's who I am.
That's just where we're at. Mysteries and romance.
Yes. So my graphic novel it's an adult graphic novel. It's called Rebecca and Lucy and the Case of the Missing Neighbor.
Okay.
And this is by Pascal Girard. And it is a very cute story of a young mother with her baby Lucy, who she's on maternity leave, and it takes place in Paris, and she overhears some people at the cafe, she goes and gets a little snack after her mother's group, and that their neighbor is missing, and she decides she has nothing to do, so she decides she's going to solve the mystery of the neighbor.
Okay. Is this a J graphic novel?
No, it's an adult.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And she decides that she's going to do that.
Okay.
With the baby in tow. And her husband's a doctor, and so he's at the hospital a lot, so she has free time. And so she just starts investigating and finding out, and she goes to the police and asks them some questions, and they're just who are you?
Why are you walking around?
Why am I? No, you shouldn't be doing this. And but she ends up figuring some things out.
Okay.
And the outcome is somewhat surprising. I'm not gonna give it away, but I'm sweet, sweet, sweet. Oh, that took a turn.
All right. Yeah. Sold. That sounds really interesting.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that there's another one. It was cute. I don't know. I enjoyed it. And then you're okay. That one went someplace. I also read, this is not a graphic novel, but it's a nonfiction. And I'm just going to mention it because I thought it was a nice compiled book. And it's called Why We Cook, Women on Food, Identity, and Our Connection. And it's by Lindsay Gardner. And she interviewed home cooks. She interviewed cooks that you would know, chefs that you would know, people you would probably see on Food Network. And it's really interesting about women's identity and just like our role as like people who help and do, but also our identity of where we come from and what foods we cook and why we cook and what we like about cooking, and women supporting other women in the field of like, it's okay to be a mom and it's okay to like be good at cooking in your home.
Right.
And entertaining and like bringing people together and identifying like that it's okay to be those things.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just a really great book. And she interviews all these people. And I think each one of them gives like a recipe.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah. I've heard a lot from just like friends and people that I know who are, they get married, they have kids, and then they're like almost like ashamed to be like taking on this home role where
like,
you cook
and that's
and you
part
nurture.
of what they discuss.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's not something to be ashamed of. Like you can just genuinely enjoy cooking. Like it's not like you're failing somehow to be like a feminist in enjoying doing those types of things. Like you can be both. You can be a strong woman, and you can also like cooking. There's nothing wrong with that.
I do think that there's this old adage of saying like, well, when you get married, like you said, you have the kid, and then okay, this kitchen is your domain.
Right.
Like, your job is to cook me a dinner.
Right.
Because I'm going to come home from work and I need a dinner.
Yeah.
I think hopefully we move past that.
Right.
And that, men like to cook too. And like, they like to work. It's like, it's fine.
No big deal.
But if you're a female and you like to work in the kitchen, I am one of those women who like to work in the kitchen.
Same, yeah.
I enjoy cooking, and I don't find that doesn't make me less than.
Yeah, exactly.
At all.
My son, anytime he doesn't know where I am, he's like, Mommy's in the kitchen. But it's just because like I like to be in the kitchen.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I like to cook and I like to bake, so that's just what he associates with me. He just knows that I wouldn't typically be in the kitchen.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I thought it was a really nice compiled book.
That's great.
If you know like Carla Hall.
Oh, yeah.
From Food Network and some of those shows that she does.
She was so wonderful on Top Chef.
Yeah.
I think she was on 2 seasons. She was like she didn't win her season, and then she came back and did like the fan favorite season 2, I think.
Yes.
It was great.
And I just love her. And she's one of the people that is interviewed in the
wonderful.
book. So
I
just throw her out.
Yeah, Carla's great.
She's wonderful. Like, I just adore her.
She's got such a good energy.
Yeah, her hootie hoo and all that stuff. I just think she's great. So I'm going to throw out 2 biographies real quick that I read. Haley Mills, Forever Young. If anyone used to watch old Disney movie or like old Disney movies, Haley Mills was always in Disney movies.
Was she in The Parent Trap?
Yes.
Okay, I knew the name sounded familiar.
Yes, she was the original in the original Parent Trap and Pollyanna. She had a long career and generally had a hard time, getting past the idea of being young, getting older, and then wanting her to be like Pollyanna or the girl from the Parent Trap.
Sure.
Like, I was a child. And so it was really good, and I always liked her, so it was an interesting read. And of course, it's almost Halloween, so I'm going to throw out that I did look, and I'm not finished with Yours Cruelly, Elvira. I gotta say, she's another fantastic person.
Well, that book went pretty viral too when it was first released. Yes. Because she did come out as bisexual in it.
Yes, and I think that, I think that's great. I have just a quick story. I hope my sister won't get upset with me when I tell the story. So anyway, she went to, what is that, horror con that they have here? There's one that's
specifically for horror stuff.
Yeah, and I can't remember the name of it. I apologize. But anyway, she got to meet Elvira.
Wow.
And she was really excited. And I remember sometime after they went to the horror con, she showed me the picture of Elvira. And I was just like, oh my God, I just love her. And my sister said, what's weird? I think that she had a girlfriend.
Oh, interesting.
And this was years ago.
So she just
and
it wasn't a big deal.
She was like, yeah, her assistant. She was, I think that they're together. And I remember my sister saying that, and I was like, oh, well, okay.
Good for her. Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah.
That's cool. And my sister was like, this is awesome. And then that came out and I texted my sister, and I was like, "Girl, you really nailed it.
Yeah, good
You nailed that like 7 years ago.
You really sleuthed that one out.
You sure did, Nancy Drew." It was just so funny. But anyway, I just had to tell that story.
That's great. That's a good seasonal book, too. It's supposed to be really good. I haven't read it, but I've heard a lot of good things about her writing.
Yeah, she's had a very interesting life. You know,
it was really a very long career. So.
She's had a long career. And, you know, like she talked about when she first was asked to do that role, she literally was just like, what am I doing? You know?
She was just like a host, basically.
Yeah.
But it kind of morphed into its own thing.
And it was, you know, she really made it her own. I mean, she really said, you know what, I can really do something with this. Yeah. You know, but I think at first she was like, what? Oh my gosh, what kind of job is this? You know, kind of thing. So yeah, she ran with that.
Yeah, for sure.
And she's made it very lucrative for herself.
Yes.
So good for her.
Yeah, good for Elvira.
I love it.
Is the moral of the story.
Yeah, sorry. Be like Elvira.
Yeah, right.
Be yourself. One real quick note, I did want to add that there's a book I would like to read, which I haven't read, and it's by Chris Offutt, who's a fantastic writer, and his newest book is called The Killing Hills, and it is on my list, and so I thought I would just throw that out there. It's something that I want to read. It's been out for a little while, and it's been on my list for a while, but as I was checking my list of things to talk about today, I was like, man, I never did read that. So
move it to the top of the Goodreads list.
I'm going to do that. Yeah. Yes, I'm going to do that.
He's a great writer.
He really is.
His books are really good.
Yes.
So,
do you have something you would like to talk about, Alexa?
Well, before I get to my big news, I will throw out one final plug for a book, The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorite books growing up, and my husband and I are currently reading it to my son at night at bedtime. We read a chapter a night, and it's just been a real delight.
Do you remember? You're probably too young. But
the movie?
The movie. Do you remember? Yeah.
I love the movie. My friend and I were really into The Phantom Tollbooth when we were in like the 4th grade. We read it all the time, and she had a copy of the Chuck Jones cartoon movie. Ooh. It's delightful. If you are familiar with the Grinch cartoon, then or any old Bugs Bunny stuff, Chuck Jones has very distinctive animation style.
Very much so.
Yeah, so if there's a character in the Phantom Tollbooth called the Humbug, and he looks very Grinchy in the Chuck Jones cartoon version.
That's correct.
Yes. They look basically the same.
Like it's the same character.
It's if the Grinch were a different color and also wore a top hat, which is kind of fun. It's a great adaptation of it. It's super fun. Our plan is to watch that movie with Rhett once we finish with reading the book at bedtime. We're almost done. He's almost rescued Rhyme and Reason. So yeah, it's just kind of like brought me back. It's such a wonderful book. It really stands the test of time. There's just a whole lot of silly wordplay.
You know, I remember reading that too and really enjoying it. And it's funny, it seemed like it was not that long ago that I noticed that the movie was on. I believe Turner Movie Classics or something played it. And I thought, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's from like the 70s, I think.
Yeah, and I thought, it took me a second.
A long buried memory.
Yeah, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I remember this. You know, it took me a second.
And I really love the framing device of the movie. So the book, the premise is that this very bored little boy, Milo, he's just having a very boring day. And then he goes home and he finds a box in his house. And inside of it is a little mini car for him to drive and a toll booth. And he drives to the toll booth and it takes him to this magical world. And he has to go on a very long, meandering mission to rescue the princesses, Rhyme and Reason. And so the movie is framed in live action. So it starts and it ends with live action.
That's true.
He is a real boy at the beginning and end. And when he drives through the toll booth, that is when as though he is going to Oz, his world turns from sepia to color. He goes from real boy to animated Chuck Jones cartoon. And it's very cool. It is a really good adaptation of the source material.
That's true. The way that the book is structured, you think, wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a whole lot. And you think, how would they? Yeah, but they do. You are right. They do a really good job of keeping a lot of the components in that story.
Yeah.
Because they really are so central to the story.
Yes, exactly.
That they had to be there.
But it's a very charming book, and I just wanted to do a quick plug for The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster.
I love it.
It's a delight, and you should read it if you haven't, and read it again if you read it a long time ago, because it's still really delightful.
I feel like it's that book and A Wrinkle in Time are two books that I feel like come back.
A Wrinkle in Time is wonderful.
It really is a great book. Yeah. And it's funny how whenever I think of that book, I think of then there's this book, The Wrinkle in Time. You know, like books that that I think still have a place and a punch. Like they're really still important.
Yes. Well, I mean, the concepts in both, I think, are so timeless that it's like you can't really date them. They're very much just like, they're about very authentic emotions and concepts. And so, they really do stand the test of time.
Yeah. So it's one of those things like if you haven't read it or you did read it, reread it.
Yeah, you still can. It's still really fun. Yeah, Rhett's a big fan of the dog with a clock in him. So
of course, who is?
We love talk. We love talk in our family. On that note, this is actually going to be my final episode of the podcast. I have been with it since its inception when it was still One Book, One Podcast.
Gosh, 100 years ago, it feels like.
That's what it feels like, but it's not sad because Jen will still be here. We will still be putting out the podcast.
Yes.
Just with some different voices.
Yeah.
So it's goodbye for now, but I mean, I'm always open to coming back as a guest. I'm not like I'm leaving the city or anything. So it's goodbye for now, but Jen will still be here. I'm just transitioning from recording to listening.
You're making me sad.
Oh.
But yes, we're gonna miss you, and we'll have another co-host, or like you said,
Yeah.
I think actually that would be really fun.
Yeah. See, you can't. The podcast will keep going. You can't give it up because it's too much fun.
I do not want to let it go. I enjoy it way too much.
Yeah. Well, I'm really looking forward to listening and seeing where we go.
Yep. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.